Do bosses like Michael Scott actually exist? And if you worked, for one, what's your craziest story? Worked with a genuine Michael Scott, a nice, well-meaning person who just did some absurd things. We had kidnapping drills one day, where we learned how to not be kidnapped. Notably, this was a regular, boring office in a regular, boring suburb. No reason why kidnapping would be on anybody's radar. He and several of the guys randomly broke out into a push-up contest. Again. White-collar office. Middle-aged dudes in khakis. Couldn't remember the nationality of our Hispanic colleague. Tried to learn Spanish to make her feel special when she returned from maternity leave. 1. What he learned was not Spanish, and 2. She was from Portugal. She knew like 5 words of Spanish. Disappeared for 4 days. No call. No email. Wouldn't respond to any of our attempts to reach him. Finally, someone drove out to his house to make sure he was alive. He'd just forgotten to tell us he was taking the week off, and then lost his phone in a lake. There were many, many moments like these. Great boss. Genuinely cared about everyone in the company. Occasional moments of brilliance, where he really got things done. But OMG, so many moments of ridiculousness. This one wins as the most like Michael Scott to me. The learning Spanish bit made me LOL. Yup, something Michael would probably do. It was pure Michael Scott. What does this word mean in Spanish? That's not Spanish. Or a word. But if it were, what would it mean in Spanish? It wouldn't mean anything, because it's not a word. But it sounds Spanish. Just like Maria. Maria's from Portugal. Yeah. Spanish? Like Maria. The intentions were admirable. The execution was not. I used Michael Scott as a reference point for an old boss of mine from the moment I started working there. He made Chewbacca noises on the regular because one of my co-workers' names sort of vaguely sounded like Chewbacca. It didn't. Used voice to text extremely loudly in his office for no reason to send really personal messages. Got really excited and wore a specific vest anytime we had after work outings scheduled. Shouted the same like 7 references to old movies and extremely awkward hip-hop song quotes 100 times a day. And insisted on greeting all our international co-workers very loudly in their language. They all speak perfect English, of course, looking around for approval afterward, and then fully giggling at everyone's French accents on conference calls. He also told me a lot about an improv show he did for a full year after it happened. That said, he had all the good parts too. He never hesitated go to the mat for any of us whether we deserved it or not. He gave really sage business advice and great examples of how to face challenges out of absolutely nowhere, and he came to every community play I did in the 4 years I worked for him, and told everyone else in the office how good I was in it for the following month and chastised them for not coming. When things really got serious or bad in my life, he couldn't have been more kind, helpful, and supportive. Honestly? Probably the best boss I'll ever have. I had one, and these are just a few quick stories. 1. He asked me how much I weighed during my interview. 2. One time he was considering selling the company to a Japanese company, and while walking them around the building he was heard saying, "We really bombed the hell out of you, huh?" 3. He got on the intercom and interrupted everyone by yelling for someone to bring him the football team's schedule. 4. I have video of him telling a really cringy joke during a sales meeting. You could see at least one person covering their face in embarrassment. 5. One time he told me to call his assistant and have her bring him a bag of coffee and his 5 pounds dumbbell. 6. He had a secret facelift. He was mysteriously gone for 3 weeks and came back with a beard. 7. I ended up with a box of pictures from the 70s with an exotic dancer giving him a lap dance. In the conference room. Same furniture. Honestly, these are just the ones I immediately remember. It was 5 years of this. Edit, this seemed relevant. One time he got new patio furniture and sent the guys from the shipping department to put it together at his house. Orders did not go out that day. Edit 2, he had a huge closet where he'd hoard random shit. He was a total pack rat and his wife didn't let him keep junk at home. I was looking for something one day and found a box labeled watches with dead batteries. He saved an entire box of watches that he knew didn't currently work, and also knew how to fix that. But instead, he just kept them in a box. We had an anonymous feedback program at work, and our boss was livid with the results, particularly with several comments that he frequently lost his temper in meetings and would yell at us. The more he talked about how incorrect and unfair and hurtful these comments were, the redder and angrier he got, until he finally pounded the table and shouted, "I do not scream in meetings? Okay." He wanted a pomegranate for lunch and they were out of season, but that didn't stop him from sending me on a quest to every grocery store in town in search of a pomegranate. Multiple produce guys laughed at me, but that was the easiest $13 per hour I've ever made. Edit, while this blew up, rather than replying to each of you I'll say it here, no, I did not find a pomegranate, and when I came back he was eating Subway and he seemed to have forgot he'd even sent me. Maybe I could have gone home or to the movies etc., but driving around leisurely listening to the radio seemed like a pretty good alternative to doing my actual work at the time. I did in fact check the gas station in Carbondale. They also do not carry pomegranates unless they are in season. He held a meeting with our whole team less one person to discuss, said person being gay. We all knew for well over a year, and never made a deal of it. So yes, they are out there and that is why the show is so funny to me. I can relate. My Italian Michael Scott boss has that traditional stubbornness which he's really allowed to display since it's a traditional gelato shop and we're in Will State, US. One summer, he fired a kid for not being hygienic and not cleaning well when we all knew the boss was uncomfortable this kid was queer. Next summer, I'm the manager and my then assistant manager and I are both queer women. In the midst of a mild homophobic/heterophobic misunderstanding, we both came out to my boss. At one point before opening he pulls me outside to ask me a personal question, if I preferred having sex with men or women. I told him women, and I'm a pretty open person and find jokes help break barriers, so I ask him which he prefers. He says women, of course, and we walk back inside where my assistant manager is and joke about it with her, and I tell him he's a lesbian since he prefers women. He finds this fucking hilarious, and yells out in the shop, "I guess I'm a lesbian." He's grown more understanding ever since. His questions are sincere, though sometimes badly phrased. Edit, many have pointed out how unfair this still is to the queer kid who was previously hired. When it happened, we didn't have direct evidence. We had many conversations about it though, and as he is the son of one of the business partners he was able to express his emotions and chose not to come back, understandably. The hiring and termination process is done by management now, and the staff and atmosphere are much more progressive in action now. I'm very thankful to have helped get it that far. I worked for a woman as her personal assistant/cat sitter. She was super rich and off the deep end nuts. She had me order a mannequin online, and then paid me to take one of the mannequin legs to Nordstrom to try and see what suitcase I could buy that would fit the dismembered mannequin body, because she wanted to fly with the mannequin to Pittsburgh to display as her daughter, dressed in her daughter's clothes, at that daughter's graduation celebration. Buying the mannequin was a whole thing too. She kept trying to get me to order from adult doll websites because she didn't get it. Lamau? I literally had a boss who would stop us in the middle of our work and hold company-wide meetings talking about 9/11 truther conspiracies and chemtrails. Mind you, we were furniture-making company. He would get so caught up in his conspiracy theories that he forgot to order wood to make furniture one month. Never have worked for one myself, but my dad told me a story about his boss who was giving out awards to everyone in honor of how long they've worked there, and he would give speeches for each person. A woman employer received her award, and he gave a speech about the story of how she came to work there. And he said, "At first I didn't want to hire her because she was so hot. My dad's not working there anymore, but I love that story because I will never not picture Michael Scott giving Pam a Dundee and saying that about her." Edit, for all those asking, I am Big Tuna's distant cousin, enlarged, tuna fish. I had a boss that used to watch me through a gap in the glass partition between our desks. She wanted to see if I was paying attention during meetings. One day, I put a large folder to cover the gap and she freaked. I still laugh when I think about it. My boss used to carry around a backpack full of hammers, and if you fell asleep at your desk he started banging a hammer on your desk until you woke up, and then he would autograph the hammer and give it to you as a gift. Long ago, my 80-year-old boss pulled me into his office. Paul, I've noticed that your shirts come untucked and that looks unprofessional. Me, I'm sorry about that, Joel. I want you to start tucking your shirts into your underwear. Me, go ahead and try it now. Me, Joel, you know I have 15 women who report to me, I can't undo my pants in the office. Sure you can. Drops pants. He is 80 and wearing Spider-Man undies. I had a boss once who spent all morning locked in his office. He asked me to come in after lunch where he showed me a handmade graph. He then proceeded to explain that this was a chart of all the sex he had ever had in his life. See, here it is blank until I joined the army. Then I went to a hooker here. Then they sent me to Vietnam where hookers only charged $2 per time. That's where you see the big jump. I was on 2 tours but then got shot in the face. I came back home and you see how it just drops to almost nothing. I was astounded. Do you know bosses like Michael Scott? Leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you wanna see more videos like this one.